This business is not sponsored by or affiliated with the United States Department of Veterans Affairs or your state's Department of Military and Veterans Affairs or any other federally chartered veterans service organization. Other organizations, including but not limited to your state's Department of Military and Veterans Affairs, a local veteran service organization, and other federally chartered veteran service organizations provide this service free of charge. You may qualify for other veterans benefit services outside the scope of what this business offers. All disability claims for increased ratings are processed by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs. This business cannot expedite the processing of your claim by the United States Department of Veterans Affairs.
Happy Wednesday, veterans, and thank you very much for spending time with us today. To get started, if you could sound off in the comments, let us know where you're from, what branch you served in, and even the years that you served. We would love to know. For today, you have myself, Coach Jordan, and you have Coach Joel as well. And like I said, we'll just give a couple of minutes to let everybody in, get everybody settled, and we will get started. And it is open today. So first and foremost, I would like to hand it off to Coach Joel, let him introduce himself to everyone. And like I said, sound off in the comments, and that way we can give you shout outs as we go.
Yeah. Good morning, Coach Jordan. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here with you today. And so I hope that the weather's not too bad where you're at here in Texas. It's starting to melt outside. The roads are anyways. The kids were off school, so it's been fun, them eating up all the food in the house. But I'm Coach Joel. I'm an Army veteran myself. I served in the Army for 11 and a half years as a tanker. I decided that it would be a better option for me to have my weapon carry me rather than me have to carry my weapon. And I'm not saying that the Army is the best branch out there. I'm not biased, but I hear through the grapevine that they are. So if you're an Army vet, make sure you sound off in the comments. I always love seeing that. But I love all my vets, right? I'm very passionate about what we do here at VA Claims Insider. I know that the VA claims process can sometimes seem frustrating. It can seem daunting, but when you have the right education and the right mindset going into it, it could make for a much more, a much smoother process, let's call it, right? So that's what we're here for, to provide you with that education and the coaching. And I really do hope that you guys get a lot of great information from us here today. Coach Jordan is an amazing coach as well. So I will pass it on to her so she can introduce herself. I know that she's not part of the Army family, but we love all branches.
I was going to say, we might be a little better over here. Just kidding. I appreciate you very much, Coach Joel, and right back at you. You're a fantastic coach. The amount of knowledge you have is impressive. But I am Coach Jordan, and I am a Marine. So obviously, we feel a little bit higher on the totem pole, but we do appreciate our Army. So I did see Manuel over here. I caught a shout out. He's retired from Ohio Army. I caught that because I just moved to Ohio. So Manuel, thank you for your service. Good to see you. A little bit about myself. I got out of the Marine Corps. I have one combat tour. I have an amazing husband who happens to be a Marine as well. And we have two beautiful young ladies. I got out of the Marine Corps. They did retire me. I was not impressed with that decision. And so it lit a fire. I needed to do something. And I am 11 years deep into just being a subject matter expert with VA, everything VA, right? And focusing mainly on the disability compensation, understanding the evidence that's required and the criteria. And that is where I get super excited. I believe knowledge is power. The more that our veterans know, it might be a little easier to understand, right? We can share that. So that is a little bit about myself. I see that we also have Marlon from the Army, also in Cleveland, Ohio. I love that Ohio is bringing in this morning. I love it. And thank you for your service as well. Joe, you see any, Coach? You see any?
I see, let's see. Brian Cox, Louisville. I learned how to say Louisville correctly whenever I went there for cadet summer training that I had to instruct there for like a month. And I kept on saying like Louisville, and people, no, that's not how you say it. It's Louisville.
They make it abundantly clear.
Yeah, from the Navy. So good to see you here. Good morning. We have Cheryl from Georgia, 23 years, United States Air Force. Okay. Welcome. Got a lot of vets sounding off in the comments. I love it. 82nd Airborne Division. We're West. Good stuff.
A lot of Air Force and Army this morning. You guys are sounding off.
Look at that. Yeah, I'm seeing a lot of Army. Russell, Terry from the Air Force, stationed with the Army. See, even the Air Force wanted to hang out with the Army.
Oh, you guys are awesome.
All right. And let's see. We got more Korea wartime veteran. Thank you for your service. Thank you for your service.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Air Force, Ohio Air National Guard. Good stuff. Steve MacArthur. Oh, where West? DAV 100% PNT. Well, congrats on that. Look at that. That's good stuff. Glad to see it.
There you go.
Glad to see it. Durham, North Carolina. Dennis Kennedy. I'm originally from North Carolina, so thank you for joining.
That's awesome. Yeah, and then do you see Bridget here coming in U.S. Navy from Chicago, the Windy City? Thank you for your service as well. We finally have Chuck Conaway coming in for the Marine Corps. Thank you, Chuck. Thank you for being here today.
There we go.
Yes, sir.
They didn't leave you alone.
No, they didn't. I knew they'd come to play. Here we go. All right.
Army Infantry, Missouri. Good stuff.
Yeah, we have John, U.S. Army.
Thomas, Long Island, New York. There we go. United States Marine Corps.
87 to 99. Thank you for your service. All right. Real quick, I want to make sure that we get started. I want to make sure that everyone here, I really appreciate you all sounding off in the comments. I said earlier, this is open question and answers between Coach Joel and myself. So what is going to happen, as you can see, you can comment. We're going to go through them the best that we can, and we really want to address the ones that are going to be the best information that we can provide in the time frame that we have. So I wanted to go through a little bit about the program here at VA Claims Insider as well, just before we get started. So some of the things, like Coach Jewel and I, things that we conduct, strategy, right? We follow what we call the SME, right? It's strategy, education, medical evidence. Those are really three important things that Coach Joel and I are always going to be thinking about. You want to have the strategy, you want to have the education that's needed to understand your conditions and maybe their symptoms, right? And the medical evidence. Medical evidence is what wins claims, disability compensation claims, medical evidence. That's what's needed at the VA. Okay, so there is the one-on-one coaching, right? You can have the one-on-one with your coach that's going to address that strategy between you, your conditions, and what medical evidence is going to be needed. All right, that claim submission, when it needs to go off to the VA. Having that coach to be able to educate you and making sure that you do it correctly, and you're able to upload all of the evidence that your claim is going to be needed. And the CMP, the most important day of the entire process for sure, is the compensation and pension exam, the CMP exam. That is going to be another really important one-on-one education that you and your coach really discuss and make sure that you're ready to have a conversation about your condition and the symptoms. Coach Joel, do you want to talk about the live classes? Those ones are awesome.
Yeah. So we have live classes once you're an elite member with us that we hold multiple days a week. And we make sure that we have classes in the morning, and we also have classes in the evening to facilitate and so that your schedule can allow you to attend those classes. And we have medical CMP exam class, mental health CMP exam class. We have the new client group orientation, and we even have one that's called Coffee with the Coaches, where we hold that several times a week in the mornings. And it's just what it sounds like. You just grab your beverage of choice, you grab your coffee, tea, if that's what you want to do, right? And you hang out with us. There you go. Coach Jordan has hers ready to go. And we just do Q&A sessions. Just being in community with other veterans who are also going through the process is important, because when you're at the right place at the right time and with the right people, the right things start to happen. A mentor of mine told me that years ago, and it stuck with me. So it's really, really important to join those classes, not just for the knowledge, but also for the camaraderie, to see others who are also going through the process. Somebody else might ask a question you didn't even realize you had. So staying engaged with your claims process is very important. I love those classes. I like teaching them. It's just another opportunity for me to be face-to-face with our fellow veterans. So those classes are definitely awesome.
I couldn't agree more. I absolutely love teaching them. They are so informative. Also, like-minded people going through the same thing. It really it brings you comfort. I couldn't agree with you more on that. And to kind of round it off with VA Claims Insider and like the one-on-one coaching, the education. If a veteran, if you're on here listening to this, discovery calls. That is a thing here where you're able to call in. You're able to go on. There is a link. It is the go.vaclaimsinsider.com. Yeah, right here. Learn, tech more. And it's to schedule that discovery call. And a representative from here is going to reach out and you can ask questions. Really get to understand the program and if it's a right fit for you. And if it doesn't feel that you really need any of this, then that's it. Then you got to have a call and you got educated a little bit. But if it is somewhere that you're like, man, I really would love this, that is where you could, if you would like listening to Coach Joel, you like hearing his voice, you like the way he speaks, you could on that discovery call, you could ask for Coach Joel or even myself. So those are things that you can just go ahead and do. Use that link right there and you can schedule it. But we wanted to really give you the ability to do the open question and answers today. So I think we really hit on what we're able to provide here, at VA Claims Insider. And so now if we want to get to the comments, Coach Joel, have you found one yet that you want to address?
Yeah, no, we have, our veterans are actually really engaged today. So I do appreciate that. It's going to make this hour really fun. So I see the first question from, I hope I said this right, Aussie Odin 9746. Why does it take so long to get a dependent added back to your claim? So whenever you're trying to get a dependent added to your claim, the process, you're actually filing a claim essentially for that dependent to get added, right? So the VA has to verify documents. Maybe they need to verify the marriage certificate, birth records, whatever the case may be in your scenario. It also depends on their backlog, right? Whatever backlog they have at the moment, whatever regional office is adjudicating that claim for you. So even though adding dependents, it does seem really simple, it still has to go through a formal review process. It still has to go through and they get to it in the order they received it sometimes. There's a lot of variables in there, right? But you can check the status on va.gov to see where it's at, or you can also call the VA benefits hotline at 1-800-827-1000. Say again, 1-800-827-1000. That is the phone number that you call whenever you have any VA claims related questions. And that would be a good phone number to call to ask what the status is if you've been waiting for a while, to see if they're missing any documentation, or they can tell you where it's at in the process. So you can have peace of mind and knowing that it's not just lost in the sauce, right? That they're doing something about it. So that phone number is a great resources for us veterans for anything claim related. But when you file for dependency, it's still considered a claim.
Oh, that was a really good question and a really good answer. Okay, so I have the Sir Gemini 0. It says, greetings from Walla Walla. I just had a new, after 35 years, claim service connected at 10%, but my VA records from the last 4 years was not part of the evidence. HLR or secondary, question mark. So I loved this and I wanted to let you know it's neither. It's neither one of those. So it is amazing to see that service connection was granted. Beautiful, love it. 10%, right? You don't feel that rating is as high as you would like it to be, and there's further evidence that you're able to provide to them. What a veteran would want to do is go on va.gov. That is going to look like an increase. That's an increase right there because the service connection's there. That's beautiful. And HLR, are we going to argue that the evidence wasn't there, right? The evidence is what wins the claim. So there's no argument at play because it got service connected, and that's a win. That makes me happy. 10%, you feel underrated. There's also evidence that wasn't reviewed. It wasn't there. Feel confident. File an increase, right? Thinking about remembering rules at the VA, ensuring that at least the last 6 to 12 months that you have up-to-date information on top of the missing 4 years. But really great question. I was super excited to answer that because it's a friendly reminder to all veterans, ensuring that you understand if a claim is service connected and you just feel underrated, but there's something that was missing, you don't want to argue anything like that. You want to take into consideration that what the VA doesn't know, they can't rate that. And you already know something was missing on your part as the veteran. So feel confident in going forth and saying, hey, there's an increase in severity. This is how I can prove it and present that to them and have confidence in that.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer. And I see Marlon Washington asked, I had a question. The VA lowered my rating. I hope you can help me. Yeah, Marlon. So when it comes to getting your rating lowered, it depends on where you're at in the process as far as what's going to be the best course of action for you there. I mean, if your rating hasn't gotten lowered yet and you just had a proposal to reduce, is something that the VA sends out to veterans to let you know, hey, you might get reduced and you have up to 60 days to submit evidence to show the contrary, right? To show that you shouldn't be reduced. Or if your rating has already gotten reduced, then that's where you're going to need to, first of all, look at the decision letter, see what the reason was for them reducing your rating. So that way you can take appropriate action on what to do next, right? To either go for an increase, to go through and request an HLR. It just all depends on what's in that decision letter. Your best bet here, if you want us to take a look at this for you and provide you with some education, is to book a discovery call. That way you can see if we're the right fit for you. And they can get you connected with either myself, Coach Jordan, or another one of our great coaches in the company. And we can go over the decision letter with you and provide you with education on that.
Love it. And that's another friendly reminder from Coach Joel that a decision letter is essentially a roadmap, right? The difficulty is understanding that roadmap and the language that's used. It's not impossible, but it's a roadmap and it's an easy way for you to be able to figure out the next step to have. But I saw Tom Sue here, and I love this question. It says, I would like to know if my anxiety is a secondary to tinnitus, which is a great question. I'm sure a lot of veterans want to know something similar to this question. And I would like to say medical professionals, right? That is where, even with my expertise and Coach Joel, we have a very good knowledge of things. Is it well known in the medical field that anxiety could be a secondary condition to tinnitus, the ringing in ears? Yes, absolutely. However, you have to have that be said and have that diagnosis be rendered by a medical professional that would be authorized to state that your said anxiety is a secondary condition to your tinnitus, right? Because they need to have that license to be able to diagnose you. And then you're going into what would most likely be needed, a Nexus letter. That is where a medical professional is able to really explain to the VA how your new anxiety condition is a secondary condition to the tinnitus. And, research articles and literature from the provider, they're able to put into those and really give the VA a good picture to support why that anxiety is secondary. But definitely be mindful, medical professionals, that is where we turn to when we need to understand if a condition is secondary to one of our already service-connected conditions. Really great question. Thank you.
Absolutely great. Coach Jordan is awesome. That was a great answer. I see Jose Perez asked a question that's pretty much a follow-up to what I just answered, but I'll hit on that for you, Jose. So you guys helped me get 80% rating. Last week, I got a letter saying they were lowering my rating. What can you do for me? So that's what tying into what I just said previously, Jose, it sounds like you received a proposal to reduce, is what it sounds like. So assuming that's what happened and you have up to 60 days to produce or to provide them with medical evidence to show that the severity of your condition is still at the current rating, or I guess it meets the criteria for the current rating that you're at right now, you definitely want to get with your coach ASAP. So that way you guys can go over that proposal to reduce and see what action to take from there. So if you're still an elite member with us, make sure you get with your coach ASAP. If not, you can book a discovery call so that you can re-engage and see if you can get reconnected with the coach. So that way you guys can go over what the best course of action is going to be next. But you definitely want to move fast on that. When you receive a proposal to reduce, the name of the game is speed. You don't want to sit on that. You don't want to wait till the last minute. You want to action on it right away. So that way you can be well within the 60-day window that they give you to provide that medical evidence.
Beautiful answer. Thank you, Coach Joel. Yeah, I jumped down here. We have a Cheryl Wayne, kind of doing what you just did, Coach Joel. Cheryl's question is, when you get service connected with a 0%, how can I get a higher percentage? So I wanted to address this as well, just to toggle off the previous question that I addressed. As a veteran, to get service connected, that's amazing. Really scored something there. You know that the evidence was there, so the VA understood how your condition itself was due to service. Now, as a coach, when a 0% is at play, the VA is not understanding the severity of symptoms in accordance with that diagnosis that's rendered, that's due to service. So like Coach Joel was saying, you always want to do a decision review. You want to review the decision letter and really understand why the 0% happened. Is there an argument at play, right? Was there evidence to support the severity to rate a higher percentage in the criteria? And like I said before, if you know that the evidence was missing to support that, then you don't want to go back and argue that. You simply want to do a visit to a provider. You really want to have a discussion with a medical professional and be vulnerable. That's where we as coaches really push that vulnerability onto our veterans. The more vulnerable a veteran can be in really talking about the worst days that they experience with their conditions, that is where a lot of your percentage comes from. Majority of your percentage comes from the severity of the symptoms from the condition itself. And that's why knowledge is power. The more that you understand your condition, the symptoms that you experience from that condition, the severity, the frequency and duration of the symptoms, it greatly makes the path easier, especially during CMP time, especially when you go in front of a medical professional and have to explain to them what the worst day looks like. So that's where knowledge is really power, understanding how the VA sees your condition and its symptoms. And then as a veteran, you're able to really walk into an exam and be like, hey, this is what I have. This is how it's due to service. This is how bad it is. And you stay focused the whole time on exactly what the VA recognizes with your condition and its symptoms. That's what really makes it easier, and you really have that confidence. But to address your question, it really depends on that decision review, understanding what happened. Was there evidence there to support there to be a higher percentage? And if not, going back to the doctor, looking at filing an increase. So thank you again for asking such a great question. It's super important.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I see Kim here asked, I'm having extreme difficulty getting a secondary injury approved. So thank you for bringing that up, Kim. That's actually a really good topic to touch on. So secondary conditions require strong medical evidence that link your existing diagnosed condition to an already service-connected condition, right? So most of the times this requires Nexus evidence or a Nexus letter, right? So the Nexus just means a link between the two, and that comes from a medical provider. Well, a qualified medical provider who's who can, diagnose and treat whatever condition it is that you're going for, right? Maybe it's a specialty doctor, depending on what condition you're going for. So, it often requires that medical opinion explaining how those two conditions are connected. I mean, without that clear link, those claims do get denied often. So if you're facing repeated denials, it's going to be worth it to review your medical evidence and how the connection is explained, because that can really make a difference, right? So if you're not submitting medical evidence with your claim, then that's something else to take a look at, because the Nexus is the medical link between your current condition and something that's already service connected, right? So for a secondary condition, that means that showing how your service-connected issue is causing or aggravating your current diagnosed condition is what's important, but that needs to come from a doctor. That needs to come from, it's not just lay statements. I know that some veterans will say, hey, well, what if I just submit a personal statement? Well, that's supporting evidence, right? But medical evidence wins claims at the end of the day. So the VA needs to see that medical opinion, that Nexus, to consider service connection for a secondary condition.
I love it. Beautiful. Yes. I scrolled down a little bit. I did see that we have a John West. Lydia, And I scrolled down a little bit to get it because I seen that he states my intent to file expires today, and was under the impression if I refile today, it would extend it. The woman at the VA was no help, and he's wondering what to do. Can I file a claim today to get it in and send supporting documents as I get them? I'm having a hard time because my VSO, no help. I've been going through this alone. So I really wanted to get to you and not miss addressing you. We only have so much time. So John, thank you very much for coming in and asking this, because absolutely submitting a claim so that you can use your intent to file insurance, because as veterans, the intent to file gives you that 1 full year that you're able to submit that claim. Okay. Now, during the claims process, there is a question that's going to ask the veteran, is this a fully developed claim? Do you have all of your documents? Are they uploaded? Yes or no? So in your situation, you would be okay to select that no. No, I still have more to upload. However, you can submit that claim in order to ensure that you use that intent to file. All right. Now, the lady at the VA, and I'm just wondering if it was a lack of communication and understanding. So when an intent to file, let's hypothetically say, John, you go in today, you submit your claim, you say it's not fully developed, you go ahead and you start uploading evidence very quickly, I might add, move quickly, but you submit that claim so that your intent to file is used. All right. Now, tomorrow after midnight tonight, you very well can go back into va.gov and open up a new intent to file. Because as a veteran who is actively rolling through disability compensation claims, every year you want to have an open intent to file. So as soon as one of them is closed up, you've submitted a claim, right? You've submitted it, it hits midnight, the next day is happening, you can go back into va.gov and you can place a new intent to file that is for maybe something down the road. Maybe you haven't even addressed those conditions yet, but you're going to file them within the next year. So maybe that's where that got a little confusing. But yes, by all means, go in. You can do that. You absolutely can submit a claim today and go ahead and select that no. Just be sure to move quickly. Move quickly on getting that evidence uploaded to them. Because the VA, they're doing a good job. They're not speedy, but they're doing great. So make sure that you're doing your due diligence as the veteran and getting that evidence over to them as quickly as possible. But that was a really great question. I hope that helped.
Yeah, that was a really good question.
Mm-hmm.
So Marlena Morgan asked, why is it so hard to get P&T? I'm rated at 90%, but not P&T. Please advise. Thanks. So that's a great question. So being at 90%, you wouldn't get P&T, which stands for permanent and total, at 90%. That typically happens when you're at 100%, right? So we know that the jump from 90 to 100% can be the most significant jump in the claims process, right? Because with the VA math, if you're at 90% and you get a 10% rating for a condition, that doesn't mean that you're going to be at 100%, right? 90 plus 10 in everyday math equals 100, but in this case, it could equal 91%, unless there's bilateral factors in there. So there are some variables in there that determine how much of a jump you need to make from 90 to 100. Now, going over the permanent and total portion of that specifically, permanent and total, or P&T, isn't automatic when you get to 100. That's something else that's important to note. The VA looks at whether your conditions are permanent, meaning they're not expected to improve, right? So even if you're at 90, even if you're at 100%, the VA may believe that some of your conditions could improve with treatment, so they don't mark them as permanent yet. So that's why there are some veterans who are at 100%, but not necessarily 100% permanent in total, or P&T. To be considered for P&T, the evidence needs to show that your disabilities are long-term and they are unlikely to get better with time and treatment. So that's where that's where you could be eligible to get 100% permanent in total, but not at 90%.
Yeah, and they make that confusing. That was a really good explanation. Yeah, the permanent and total, right? Static versus not, and it's a different, but great explanation. So I also went down and saw Dawn Freeman. What if your medical records are lost? So I love this question because I think being a veteran and being out for a certain amount of time, not having records, it makes the veteran so concerned, and you don't go after it. And that is why knowledge of power, yet again, sometimes there's records that were lost in that fire. There are records that just were never input and you have no idea where they are. You've been out for 30, 40 years. This is where your coach and you really look towards medical professionals. Okay. So as a coach, I look at simple things, DD 214, right? Where a veteran was, timeframes that you were there. There's a lot of conditions that veterans don't know that may be presumptive just because you were there at a specific area, time, place. All right. There's also things that may be job related, right? There's certain codes on your DD 214, maybe certain equipments that were used. There's a lot of conditions that maybe medical records specifically might not be needed. And that's where I get into this model, right? Our program, even the VA is not a one shoe fits all. Every single human being is very genuine and unique in their own way. And you have to take that into consideration when it comes to your disabilities, your service, and the service connection and your percentages. So medical records sometimes can be found, right? You can submit requests and sometimes they can be located. That can be done on va.gov. If you haven't done that already, by all means, please do. Go and try to retrieve those. National Archives, right? Maybe that is a possibility. But I also don't want you to lose hope if that door gets slammed and they're like, nope, we can't find anything. There are, like myself and Coach Joel, there are subject matter experts that are able to look at a few pieces of documentation and then discuss with you maybe a strategy of going to medical professionals. Hey, you need to talk about your conditions. You really need to get that symptomology reported and then move forward on a claim. So it's very strategic the way that a VA claim gets filed. It's very specific to your service, where you were, what you've done, and currently what's going on with you. Us as coaches, we really look deep into those and then provide the education to you on how to move forward with medical professionals, right? Because we're not those. We know how to navigate. We understand the VA and their requirements. We can educate you on that, move forward with providers. And that is where we can really tell if a condition can be linked back to service, that gap analysis. Can a condition be linked back? Yes or no? So I hope that one helped too.
Great answer. Great information. Cheryl Wayne. I did an HLR for an early effective date on one of my service-connected claims. The decision was that the VA failed on a duty to assist as they remained back to Atlanta VA. What do I do at this point? So Cheryl, that's a great question. And thanks for sharing that. So the fact that the VA found a duty to assist error in your higher level review decision means that typically they're sending your claim back for further development, whether they need more evidence, whether they need another exam. In your case, it's just an earlier effective date. So that sounds like they're just gathering records or looking further into this to see something that they missed. So at this point, there's really nothing you need to do immediately if that's the case, right? If you received an HLR decision letter that says that there was a duty to assist error, that means that the VA is working on it now. So once you can monitor your claim status on va.gov, like I was saying earlier, or call in to the 1-800-827-1000 phone number and check on the status of your claim. But once they make a decision after the HLR decision letter, right, they push it for further development, then you'll receive another decision letter of them letting you know what's going to happen from that point. And with effective dates, I know that sometimes there could be some confusion with effective dates. A lot of veterans believe that, hey, if I just submit a claim, this month, then that means that if I had an intent to file from June, I submitted a claim in December. Well, my effective date has to go back to June. I have to get back paid to that date. However, there's some variables. Let's say you had an intent to file active in June, but you didn't get diagnosed with a condition until November. You submit the claim in December. Typically the VA won't make the effective date June just because you filed the intent to file because you were not diagnosed with the condition yet. So a lot of times that can get a little bit tricky and it could seem a little bit confusing, but just know for anybody out there who may have that question about an effective date, that it's going to go back to whichever one is later, either your intent to file or the diagnosis. If you weren't diagnosed with the condition, you're not going to get an effective date typically. That's going to push, further back, or it's going to go farther than when you actually got diagnosed with the condition that you're claiming. But yeah, after you receive that duty to assist error on an HLR, at this point, the VA is just going to process that and provide you with another decision letter to tell you what they're going to do from there.
That was a good question too. That was really good. I saw it's a Quit Like Diamond, I believe. It says, I filed last year for 2 disabilities. I was awarded 100% for mental and 70 for my hand. Could I get TDIU for that hand? I really liked this question because another one, knowledge is power, right? This is amazing. The wins, love that. Amazing. Now, given the percentages that you've shared, assume, right? I'm going to assume there is a P&T, what Coach Joel was talking about earlier. I would assume, given the percentages that you have, that you would have the P&T, that permanent and total, attached to your award as well, which would be perfect. That's what you deserve. Now, with TDIU, veterans that sit in a situation like yourself with 100%, hopefully permanent and total, the TDIU is not something that you would be interested in. It's not something that is anything needed for you. Now, this is why. The total disability individual unemployability is for veterans that, let's say they have a condition that's 60 or 70%. Let's just say your hand is the only one, but you're not able to actually reach where you're currently sitting 100% or 100% permanent and total. That is where TDIU comes in. It is for veterans who are not able to have their conditions reach the 100% mark. They're going to be staying down here 60, 70, maybe 80, right? But they're not able to work. They're unemployable because of that condition. That is where you're not going to have evidence of new conditions. You're not going to have anything to service connect. That is, in my book, a last resort for a veteran who is unemployable due to their conditions, who was never going to be able to reach 100% or 100% permanent and total. So for a veteran like yourself, who is sitting in such a position, there is no reason for you to file such a thing. It would just gum up. It would gum up the process, right? There's no reason for it to happen. But maybe looking at SMCs that might be available, doing some research on special monthly compensations for veterans in your situation. But the total disability, individual unemployability is just not something that you would be looking for yourself. And so I really love that question. It's a really tricky path that a lot of veterans question. And so if a veteran has conditions and the evidence that maybe they would achieve 100% or 100% permanent and total, we're not looking at TDIU. And that's where I wanted to be very clear. TDIU is not going to be for that veteran.
Yeah, great point. That was a good question too. Kim Robertson asked, can an outside the VA medical provider state there is a secondary condition to an approved primary condition? Okay, that's a good question. So the answer is yes, a private or a non-VA doctor can provide a medical opinion for you to submit as supporting evidence with your claim that links a secondary condition to an already service-connected primary condition. So the VA accepts evidence from outside providers as long, and it's going to support your claim as long as the opinion is detailed. It explains the connection clearly and is backed by medical reasoning, right? So what matters most is that the doctor explains how your service-connected condition caused or aggravated the secondary one. And that is called a nexus statement, right? And a nexus statement is critical for secondary claims because it also fulfills one of the requirements of the Kaluza triangle, right? For the current diagnosed disability, in-service event, injury, or illness, and nexus. Well, an outside the VA provider can provide a medical opinion that supports the nexus.
I love it. These are really good questions. I just came across Tony Wasco talking about maybe some presumptives here, maybe PACT Act, right? Spent 20 months at Fort Dix, New Jersey. I do now have type 2 diabetes, stage 4, CKD, active bladder cancer. Do I qualify for PACT Act? I love this question because the answer is not what you'd expect. It's actually unbeknownst to me whether you would qualify or not. Just by reading your diagnoses, your location, I very much understand your location, where you served, but also there are parameters in regards to when, how long, and those conditions specifically. So the thing I wanted you to know, Tony, is yes, the location, the 20 months, the conditions, but there's also a few other things, also including a medical professional. Okay. We want to make sure that medical professionals, that we see the evidence of these conditions. Specifically, when we're talking about Fort Dix specifically, I tread lightly because if the evidence speaks to me enough that as a coach and my expertise, I feel confident, then very much so may push for that presumptive link. Now, if the condition and the symptomology and the continuity of care is just a little bit lacking for one of the requirements to qualify, I would educate a veteran on a Nexus letter, because why would you go at the VA for that link and not be ready? You know 100% when a veteran files a claim, the VA wants to know the diagnosis, and it has to be within the last 6 to 12 months. All right. Anything prior to that is great too, but it also has to have the last 6 to 12 months that you've been to the doctor and talked about it. The active bladder, right? Got to have all those test results within the last 6 to 12 months as well. But then on top of that, the veteran at this point needs to prove how that condition was caused by, right? And so really making sure Fort Dix, those 20 months, the time frame specifically, the years that you were there, what you were around, that is really where I educate on if you should do it as a PACT Act, as a presumptive condition, looking at being the hazardous exposure. But would really want to do the research on that before I gave you a straight answer. And I wanted to address your question like that because I want, between Coach Joel and I doing this live right here, doing the open Q&A, what we actively think about when a veteran presents where they were, their conditions, and you still tread lightly, you still have that strategic mindset of how is the VA going to look at this? What is going to be needed when that veteran submits this claim? What are the questions the VA is going to ask? Are they in the evidence? Are they already addressed in the evidence? And that's really where Coach Joel and I come into play, reviewing, making sure that the check marks are there for you. That way, when you, the veteran, submit your claim to the VA, you can sit back and know the evidence wins claims, evidence speaks for itself, and all you need to do is be educated on you, your condition, and the symptoms, right? I love it. So thank you, Tony, for asking that question. I do hope that it gets you a little fire burning to get some research going to see if you very much do qualify for that presumptive link or not.
Nice. Yeah. So the next question that I see here is from Nyla-3, is rhinitis secondary to sleep apnea? So this is a good question. Let's start with rhinitis. Since we were just talking about the PACT Act, well, rhinitis is one of the conditions that's presumed to be service-connected if you served in Southwest Asia, right? So rhinitis is a presumptive condition. Now, the relationship between rhinitis and sleep apnea, they're both respiratory conditions, and there can be a medical relationship between them. And it's important to note, like Coach Jordan was saying earlier, that we're not medical professionals, right? But to provide you with some basic information, there can be a medical relationship between them. The VA doesn't presume one is secondary to the other, though. That's important to know. So just because you submit a claim for rhinitis secondary to sleep apnea secondary to rhinitis, that doesn't mean that it's automatic, right? It's not presumed to be that way. That's where the Nexus statement comes in to play. Like, for example, let's say if chronic rhinitis is causing inflammation and nasal congestion, and it blocks the airflow through the nose, and that makes your obstructive sleep apnea worse by forcing you to breathe through your mouth or reducing airflow during sleep. These are some of the examples of things that they might look for. However, to win a secondary service connection claim, you need a medical opinion from a VA or private doctor, like we were saying earlier, that explains how your rhinitis is either being caused or aggravated, or flip that, how your sleep apnea could be being caused or aggravated by your rhinitis. And the VA is going to look for that clear diagnosis for both conditions, right? That you've been officially diagnosed by a doctor for both conditions, rhinitis and sleep apnea. They want to make sure that your service-connected, that your primary condition that you're claiming as secondary to is already service-connected, right? So anytime you go for a secondary service connection, that's another thing that I want to point out to you guys is that if a condition isn't already service-connected, you can't submit a claim as a secondary condition to it on the same claim. Because I do see that often. I've seen denials for that where, hey, I'm going to claim sleep apnea secondary to rhinitis, for example, and I'm going to submit them both at the same time, even though rhinitis isn't already service connected, right? So your primary condition does need to be service connected. And then the Nexus statement from a medical provider that explains the connection between the two with a rationale, with a clear rationale backed by medical literature. So if a provider simply says they're related without explanation, well, the VA likely won't grant it based on that medical opinion, but a detailed evidence-based opinion can support a case for this. So overall, I know that was a long-winded answer, but the answer is possibly yes.
It was great. It was great. I don't want to mispronounce Mr. Williams' name here. It's John. I'm so sorry. I'm not good. But you're wanting to know how do I submit a secondary claim to the VA? Do I indicate that this is a secondary claim? I loved your question. So wanted to make sure. So how do I submit a secondary claim to the VA? That's the first part. Well, first and foremost, there are different types of claims. Has it ever been filed before? If not, that's a new. If it's been denied in the past, that's most likely a supplemental. Most likely, okay? Remember, we need to review stuff to be 100% accurate. So this is all hypothetical. But the part of that is, has the condition been denied in the past or not? Is it new? Does it need new and relevant evidence? We figure that out first, all right? And then how do I indicate that it's a secondary claim? It is actually a question while you're in the submission, like while you're in actively submitting either the new or the supplemental, whatever type of claim it is. If the VA wants to know that, they're going to ask, how was this condition caused? Did the service cause it? Was it caused by another service-connected disability? Was it aggravated beyond its natural progression? Or was it like a VA error, like something happened during surgery, or a crazy one-off thing, right? A lot of veterans, it's either direct or it's secondary. So that question is literally while you're in the submission, and that is exactly how they understand. As soon as you make that selection, there's another box that populates and it says, tell me what condition caused this new condition as secondary. So what primary service-connected disability caused this new one that you're trying to claim today? And that's literally how it's done. I was super excited to answer that because it's a simple. It's the type of claim you're filing, and then it's a question throughout that submission that the VA is going to know that it's a secondary condition. And I don't want to go over you real quick, Coach Joel, but I wanted to do Ralph real quick too. Just a real fast, Ralph Hamilton. Should I file for the lumbar spine first, then file for cervical spine after? This is a really great question, but that is based off of what condition is service connected, right? What condition was caused by service? Because that is essentially where a veteran starts. You really want to make sure that every condition that the veteran, can prove was caused directly by service, whether it was an injury, an event, something happened, that you are able to prove to the VA that that condition started in service. That is where a veteran starts. That is where the doors open, okay? So maybe that is your lumbar. Maybe that is the lumbar spine. That was the one that happened in service. Maybe you have an event that's recorded and it's proof, right? You went to medical maybe. Well then, let's service connect that one first. Then move up. looking at maybe the cervical spine being a secondary cause because the back's been thrown out for so long. Now the neck's out, right? And also to note, it is a rule of thumb that the VA does see veterans from their feet to their head. All right. So trying to go down sometimes might be difficult, but again, it's not impossible because we rely on medical professionals to do that gap analysis, that medical literature and research that supports maybe it was the cervical neck that threw out the lumbar spine. But that is where, as experts, we wait for medical professionals. But again, where a veteran starts, what is the direct causes? What can you prove happened in service and get those service connected, then take steps forward on those secondary conditions? All right, Coach Joel, you get the last one.
No, that was good. That was good. So let's see. I'll answer 2 questions because one of them is going to be really short. I'll start with Marlena Morgan again. Does your doctor or the VA make the decision regarding what's permanent and total? That's a great follow-up question to your question earlier. So only the VA can officially decide if your condition is permanent and total. Now, with that being said, a doctor, whether VA or a private doctor, they can provide a medical opinion that says your condition is unlikely to improve, but it's ultimately the VA rater who makes the final call based on all the evidence on whether you are considered permanent and total or not, because that's on the claim side of the house, right? The VA may look at things like how long you've had the condition, for example. So even though your doctor's input is important, especially if they clearly explain why the condition is permanent and unlikely to improve, it's ultimately the VA who decides that permanent and total status. And I know that some veterans sometimes get that confused with, and I'm just adding this onto it. It's off topic, but the VA healthcare system is separate from the claims process, right? So you have 2 separate entities that fall underneath the VA. You have the VBA and you have the VHA. The VHA is the Veterans Health Administration, then you have the Veterans Benefits Administration. So just because you get treated for a condition, or just because your VA doctor tells you something regarding your condition, like, hey, this is permanent, it's not going to improve, that doesn't mean that it automatically translates over to the claim side of the house, to the Benefits Administration, right? So whenever you're filing claims, or whenever you're considering whether you should be permanent and total, if you're at 100%, that's going to be on the Veterans Benefits Administration side. Whatever your doctor tells you, or whatever medical evidence you get from going to the VA healthcare providers, those can support your claim with the Veterans Benefits Administration, but they're not one and the same. Just because you were diagnosed or treated for a condition through the VA does not mean that it's already service connected, or that they will grant service connection for it. You still have to meet the requirements. You still have to have the in-service event, injury, or illness, the Nexus, and the current diagnosed disability. The same rules apply whether for the VA to consider service connection, or whether you get treated by the VA or you get treated by a private doctor. I just wanted to make that clear distinction there, because I know that that's a question that comes up often. And then for John West Lida, I want to say, I hope I said that right. I know y'all are pressed for time to answer all the questions. I would love to speak to either one of you in Lent to cover all my issues I'm experiencing. If I leave my email address, can you reach out to me? So this is a great timing to answer this question, because the answer is, please book a discovery call, and you can request to have either myself or Coach Jordan as your coaches. And then we can sit down with you and go over everything and have that detailed strategy call with you, provide you with the education, and really go into detail into your specific scenario, because this is not a one size fits all. Like Coach Jordan was saying earlier, right? Everybody's scenario is different. I mean, when I was going through the claims process myself years ago, or when I went through the claims process, I watched an unhealthy amount of YouTube videos. I mean, I was research. I did it. I was going to bed at 3 a.m. doing research on this stuff. And it left me more confused, because it wasn't specific to my scenario. It wasn't specific to my situation. It was just information overload. So I'm glad that you would love to speak to one of us. The best way to go about it is to book that discovery call, and then you can request either one of us.
I did see IT in the back. I absolutely love them. They did catch his updated comment. He said he is scheduled with Shannon for, I believe it said this Friday. Thank you very much.
Nice.
I'm scheduled this Friday at noon with Shannon. Can I have this one sent to one of y'all? So absolutely. So what you do when you have that talk with Shannon, she's amazing. So make sure you would ask all of the questions. Make sure you understand everything that you feel comfortable. As long as you're comfortable, absolutely request Coach Joel, request myself. If you go, like Coach Joel was just saying, he went and watched a lot of videos. If you go on here, even on this Facebook, you can see a lot of different coaches and the way that they conduct themselves. Pick your favorite. Absolutely. You could even be a part of this program and have a conversation with one of us coaches and then be like, I might want a different one. That's allowed too. The most important thing here at VA Claims Insider is the SEM, strategy, education, medical evidence. If a veteran doesn't understand these three things, this whole thing is pointless. So you being comfortable and confident with your coach, the team, right? That is what really is going to start the process for you. So absolutely have that call with Shannon, ask all of the questions, and then request whatever coach you would like to be sent to. And on the back end, they do all the things. And then lo and behold, you'll get a call from one of us. And then we'll be like, hey, John, remember, remember us? Yeah, here we are. So just to recap, with a veteran is on here right now, make sure that you remember VA Claims Insider and everything that we're trying to achieve, right? Strategy, education, medical evidence. That is really what's going to get a veteran the rating, the service connection that they deserve by law, right? This is everything. One-on-one coaching, all right? You're going to have the claim submission education. You're going to have the CMP education. What else is there? The strategy session all in itself is the most important day with your coach, is really the day you're going to get started on moving forward. And after that, it moves pretty quickly. Coach Joel, don't you say? We move pretty quickly.
Yeah.
The only thing we really wait on is doctors, appointments, right? Because a lot of us veterans don't go to the doctor. So all about VA Claims Insider. You have the one-on-one coaching if you so choose. You have the education before every move you make at the VA, whether you're submitting your claim, whether you're going to the doctor, you're going to the CMP exam. Your coach is your battle buddy. That's what we are. We're very intelligent on the VA side, battle buddy. Okay. Questions, updates that come your way, they seem concerning to you. Sometimes I look at it and I'm like, don't sweat it. You don't even need to worry about it. So that is what we're here for as coaches. And like Coach Joel talked about earlier, the live classes via Teams, those are super awesome once you come aboard. This Facebook Live, any veteran, you guys can see us right now. But the Teams meetings, the classes, those are where you have the coffee with the coaches. You're getting medical education, really what CMP exams, maybe some criteria looks like, mental health even as well. Those classes really build the camaraderie between our veterans who come aboard. And then there's a special little note about a book. Coach Joel, do you want to finish everything off?
Yeah, no. So the new book from our founder, Rhinitis, the VA Claims Secrets, it's now available and you can order yours on Amazon today. And there's also a link there. Our backend team, you guys are amazing. Thank you. There's a link right there if you want to order Brian Reese's new book full of great information. And like Coach Jordan was saying, when you sign up with us and you get assigned to a coach, you actually get given our direct cell phone number as well. So you'll be able to text with us. You'll be able to call us and schedule calls with us. And that way we can answer the questions you have, right? So you don't have to worry about going to 100 different places online to try to find information that's just general information, right? You can talk to one of us and get your questions answered and have that peace of mind, right? So we will be your source of information. We'll be your battle buddy. We'll be your coach, right? We'll be your accountability partner. We love what we do. And I mean, what better than to get to talk to our veterans every day, right?
Agreed.
I can't think of anything better to do. So I really do. Yeah. It's a pleasure. It's an honor for me to do this. I'm very excited that I got to do this with you guys today and do it alongside Coach Jordan, because Coach Jordan is absolutely awesome. And if we could put the link there for the discovery call, since we are about to wrap up here, in case anyone missed it and you want to book a discovery call. And again, you can request one of us as coaches specifically. If not, you'll get assigned to a coach. We have many great coaches in this company. So you'd be in good hands either way.
Thank you, everyone. We really appreciate your time. Thank you for asking all of the questions. This hour just flew by, Coach Joel. This is crazy.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. We hope that you have learned today. and go spread the education as well. And don't forget those discovery calls. All right. You guys take care.
You serve, you deserve.